All right, welcome everyone to a bylaws training for St. George Community Cooperative. My name is Laura Mistretta, and I'm a resident organizer with the CVOEO Mobile Home Program. And I'm joined today by two of my colleagues. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, I'm Wendy Rowe, and I'm a housing educator and advocate in the mobile home program and also in the Vermont Tenants Program at CVOEO. It's nice to be here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Gerrity. I'm another resident organizer with the mobile home program at CVOEO, and I work with Laura. So great to be here today as well.
Awesome. So yeah, so we represent, today we're here representing the CVOEO mobile home program. A little bit about our program. We are a statewide resource for homeowners living in Vermont's mobile home parks. We work with individuals and communities to make communities safer, healthier, and just stronger. This training today, the bylaws training, is part of a civic engagement pilot project that we are working on with St. George Community Cooperative and Mountain View Mobile Home Park in Heinsberg. Civic engagement project is really about, helping increase people's ability and knowledge of how to impact decisions that impact you. So whether, decision at the town level, state level, or even right here in your own community, your own neighborhood, so St. George Community Cooperative. This bylaws training, came out of some conversations we've had with you and your neighbors about a desire to understand how the cooperative works better. So we hope this is a start to understanding that more. By no means is this presentation a comprehensive overview of the bylaws. We do not cover every single section in this presentation. However, what we do cover is we cover what we thought were sort of the highlights, the really key pieces of info that will help you know how to best engage with your community. So today, in about, in the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be covering, what are bylaws. We'll be covering membership. We'll talk a lot about the board of directors, and most importantly, we'll talk about the various opportunities that you have to make your voice heard in the cooperative and in your community. So and if you ever want to connect with us, whether about this presentation or anything else going on in your community, please give us a call. Our number here is on the screen. But for folks maybe who are listening in, you can reach us at 802-660-3455, extension 204. This phone number will appear again at the end with some other resources that we will direct you towards, so you can, dig in deeper to this topic as is needed. All right, well, let's get things started.
Thanks, Laura. So, just a little overview of the bylaws before we get going. Bylaws are a governing document that define the structure and function of the organization. So, for example, bylaws are used to define how meetings are run, how voting takes place, and the rights and duties of co-op members and elected board members. The St. George Community Co-op bylaws are part of ROC USA's cooperative model and were approved by the membership in 2018 when the bylaws were adopted. So why know the bylaws? Knowing the bylaws makes it easier to engage in community meetings, voting, and decision-making. It increases an understanding of how the co-op operates and can be used to expand communication among the membership. Knowing the bylaws informs you of what your rights and responsibilities are as a co-op member, and thereby protecting your membership. And participating in community decisions builds a stronger and more representative community. So bylaws are used in conjunction with community rules and mobile home park law. Bylaws can't be used to take away rights you have under mobile home park law. So for example, it's your right under mobile home park law to sell or rent your mobile home to someone else in place. So the bylaws couldn't be used to change or limit that right. And I
Great.
think I'm turning this to you, Ryan.
Yeah, so again, my name is Ryan Gerrity and resident organizer with the mobile home program. So next we're going to be going over membership rights. And this is a pretty basic information here, but just for anybody who might be questioning, what does it mean when I am a member? What rights do I have? It's pretty simple. So all the information about your membership is going to be explained in the bylaws for living in the cooperative. And it basically just means you have the perpetual right to occupy your lot as long as you're a member that is in compliance with the member occupancy agreement and the bylaws and community rules. You also have the right to vote at meetings. So one household gets one vote, and any member in good standing can run for the board of directors. A member in good standing, member in order to be able to vote also has to be in good standing. And a member who is in good standing is someone whose lot rent and their membership fees are current, or they have a signed agreement that's satisfactory to the board of directors to bring those rents or fees current. Great. So going on from your rights as a member, another thing you're going to want to know is what obligations you have as a member. Pretty basic as well, going along with your rights as a member. Your obligations are, your main ones are going to be paying your lot rent and your membership fee. So all members and also non-members are going to be required to pay their lot rent. And then the membership fee is a one-time fee of $100 for your community, and it's returned when someone sells their home or they end their membership. And you're also going to be required to, or obligated to, participate cooperatively in the operation of the corporation and abide by the community rules and the bylaws in general. Great. And next, we have the rule enforcement policy going on from those obligations as a member. So rule enforcement policy is separate from the bylaws, but related. It's not in the bylaws, and it exists as a separate policy and document, which is additional rules and guidelines for living in the community, in the park and in the community. And the rule enforcement policy and procedure committee is something that's appointed by the board of directors with the primary purpose of handling any disputes or complaints in a fair and even-handed and positive manner. So any complaints or disputes are going to generally be handled by the rule enforcement committee. And when it comes to rule enforcement, there's certain things that are going to put your membership at risk in the cooperative. And if you want to know all of those things, you can see the full rule enforcement policy. But some main things you should know is that it's really just a violation of anything stated in the bylaws and or the rules and guidelines of the community would put your membership at risk. And there's going to be different levels of violations as well. So serious or controversial violations would cause an immediate meeting to be called for a discussion of the matter. The matter would be discussed and handled in accordance with the rules, violation steps, and then, or they would immediately be handed over to the board of directors. This would be if it was a very serious matter. And if you have any issues, if you have an issue in your community, you should definitely contact the board or the property manager as soon as possible to address the issue. If you have questions on how you should go about this, if you're having trouble, we can support you here at the mobile home program in figuring out the best way to deal with that conflict. Great. And moving on from the policies for rule enforcement and some key notes on how to make sure that you don't put your membership at risk. There is also the fact of termination and expulsion from membership. So membership can be terminated and you do have the right to appeal. So loss of membership requires written notice, reasonable opportunity to cure the violation, and reasonable opportunity for a hearing before the board of directors shall also be provided before any expulsion of a member. So this whole process is also explained in detail in the rule enforcement policy. And members can appeal the decision to terminate membership at the next membership meeting, or they may request a special meeting of the membership within a reasonable time period, and such a request can't be unreasonably denied. And your membership rights can be reinstated. So expulsion from membership in your community, in your cooperative, is different from eviction in the park. A member does not need to be expelled from membership before they are evicted. So it is not eviction. So to break that down a little more, what happens when you lose your membership? That's decided by the board of directors. You can't vote or attend meetings. Your lot rent goes up. The St. George Cooperative has 2 different lot rents, one for members and then one for non-members, which is slightly higher. And you can appeal and membership can be reinstated as well at a later point. What happens when you get evicted? It's decided by a judge, and the home must be removed from the community or sold in a certain period of time. So that's basically everything for termination and expulsion. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Laura.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so that covers membership. We're going to move on here in this section, discuss the board of directors. So just to start off and give an overview, at St. George Community Cooperative, you have a 9-member board. Board members are elected and serve voluntarily and without compensation. So what that means is that a board member may choose to resign at any time. And a board member's time is totally volunteer. There's no compensation for serving as a board member, except for any costs incurred in the actual, work of being a board member, like stamps or printer ink or something like that. And as was mentioned before, any member in good standing can run to be on the board of directors. And that is really the only requirement for throwing your name in the hat to be on the board. No one can be barred from running for the board due to their age, race, religion, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, disability, national origin, or due to receipt of public assistance, or because you have children. So much like fair housing law for apartments and housing, the board of directors does not discriminate. All board members are required to sign and follow a couple of additional policies. We've got a code of ethics policy, procurement policy, and a conflict of interest policy. If folks are interested in looking at those policies more closely, we'll be able to connect you with that information. And so how does someone get elected to the board, or how does that work? So every year, the membership, you and your neighbors elect the board of directors at an annual or special meeting. When someone is elected to the board, they are elected for 2 years before they will be up for election again. And no director may serve for more than 3 consecutive terms. The only time there's a slight exception made for if your community is just becoming a cooperative and there is an interim board of directors, that time period does not count towards the term limits. So someone could serve on the interim board and then go on to serve 3 consecutive terms after that. So the ballots are provided on a form approved by the board of directors, and ballots are sealed and opened at the membership meeting. So it's for transparency. Absentee ballots are allowed, but must be requested ahead of time, and generally provide a reason for why you would require an absentee ballot. Things like being in the hospital, your work schedule or being out of town are all totally valid reasons for requesting an absentee ballot and should not keep you from voting. As mentioned, St. George has a 9-member board, and there's a variety of positions on the board that people will be elected for. So your board has a president, a vice president, a treasurer, a secretary, an operations manager, and then 4 directors at large. And each of the responsibilities for these positions is specifically outlined in the bylaws to provide some guidance. And if you have, so you can look to those descriptions for more detailed information, or talk to the people who are serving on the board right now. If you think you might be interested in running for a position and you want to find out more about it, really the best thing to do would be to talk to the person who's on the board in that position and get a sense from them what it's like. What are the responsibilities and requirements for those various board positions? So what power does the board actually have? What does the board do? So according to the bylaws, the board of directors is responsible for the day-to-day management of cooperative operations. And what that looks like is, things like signing legal documents, paying the bills, approving emergency spending or dealing with emergencies like a water leak or a septic issue, maintaining records and bookkeeping, so maintaining minutes from every meeting and maintaining reviewing monthly budgets. The other thing is that when someone's elected to the board, they are then officially authorized to act on behalf of the cooperative. So if the community needs to be represented or in any sort of official capacity, the board members are authorized as the representatives of the community. For anything that kind of goes outside of the ordinary course of business, so anything outside of the general day-to-day operations I mentioned, the board must get member approval. So an example could be, say the board is really interested in putting a sign up at the entrance of the community so people know that they're entering St. George Community Cooperative, but the budget doesn't include money for a sign. That wasn't voted on by the membership. Well, the board could probably propose it in next year's budget or call a special meeting and ask the members to consider spending money on a sign. But because that has not been previously authorized by the membership, the board would need to get member approval before purchasing a sign. The other thing that board members do is they set up committees and/or ad hoc groups to work on specific responsibilities. St. George Community Cooperative at this time has 3 standing committees: Operations Committee, Rules Enforcement Committee, and Membership Committee. These committees can also, it's not just board members who can be on committees, members as well can be in committees and are extremely helpful to have members on committees. And there's a whole host of different types of committees that could exist in your community. So resignation, removal, and vacancies. So how does that work? There's a couple of reasons why a board position might be vacant. As I previously mentioned, board members can resign at any time. They serve voluntarily. They are free to leave when they want. Resignations must be in writing. Directors can also be removed by the membership or by their fellow board members. If a board member is determined to not be working in the best interest of the community or in violation of the bylaws, they can be voted off the board by 2/3 of the rest of the board, or members can, if 10% of the members can sign a petition and call for a meeting to vote on whether this board member should continue to serve or not. If there is a board member, if there is a vacancy on the board for whatever reason, then the majority, the remaining board members can appoint and vote to fill that vacancy. And then that position would be up for election at the next annual meeting. And that about covers the board of directors.
So, so board meetings are our next topic. The notice of time, place, and agenda need to be posted in a public place, no less than 3 days before each board meeting. So the bulletin board next to the mailboxes are one place where those meeting minutes would be posted, again, 3 days before every board meeting. The meetings are held every third Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. in the St. George Schoolhouse across the road, or online during the COVID-19 pandemic. And members can join by computer or phone right now. And when board meetings resume in person, again, in the St. George Schoolhouse, you know, people can attend those meetings. Those are open meetings generally, with a few exceptions that we'll go over. But the board meetings are something that that members, you know, can come and join. While the board has sole discretion to establish the agenda, any co-op member can suggest agenda items for the meeting by either contacting a board member or, you know, yeah, so generally that would be the very best way to do it, is to contact a board member ahead of time so that they have some chance to prepare for that agenda item. But if there's something that comes up that is more last minute, there's always an open forum section at meetings. And the open forum is a time when you can bring up a question or an issue that the board may not, you know, have on their current agenda. They can hear it. They may have time to talk about it a little bit, but the expectation would be that it probably gets tabled to the following board meeting. But that said, you know, if there's a reason, you know, if there's something that a co-op member wants to add in a more timely fashion, just to the conversation that's happening in a board meeting, you know, there is always room for that. At any board meeting, a simple majority is needed for the board of directors to, you know, to essentially do any kind of voting. So a simple majority of the number of directors constitutes a quorum. And a quorum is, you know, defined as the minimum number of people that are needed to be present to conduct business. So in a 9-member, you know, board, on a 9-member board, 5 or more board members would need to be present, and present at a board meeting can also, a board of director also has the ability to call in if they can't be physically present, and that call-in gets, you know, constitutes you know, gets added to the number that that could potentially make the quorum. So a phone call counts. Right now, the board of, and we are recording this in April of 2021, there are 2 openings. There are two vacancies, I should say, on the board of directors. So right at the moment, a 4 people or more constitute the quorum requirement. And then a majority of those present must, you know, vote in the affirmative to pass a motion. Meeting minutes are made available to the members after they've been attested and approved by the board. So essentially, the secretary takes the meeting minutes. They at the following board meeting, those minutes are reviewed, and they're once they've been approved, then they are available for any, you know, co-op member to have to read. That is a great way to communicate within the community. to really be able to track what's happening, you know, in the co-op, in terms of co-op business. And the meeting minutes, you know, can be made available by a request, either to, you know, a board member or to PMA, to your property management company. They also can get you board meeting minutes if you're looking for them. And I think we will go on to the next slide, Laura. So the one exception to the open, you know, to the regular and special board meetings, which are open to membership, are executive sessions. Executive sessions are, you know, it is an exception because it may be a time in which the board is either receiving legal counsel, that they want to do so privately, or they may be discussing something that requires confidentiality for a co-op member or members. So it's important to know, though, that decisions are not made in executive sessions. Two things: meeting minutes are not kept during an executive session, and decisions are not made during an executive session. So if there is some kind of decision that needs to come out of that executive session, the board of directors must, you know, take that to the membership in the form of a motion at a public meeting.
Awesome. Back to me. We're going to talk next about voting. Very quickly, we touched on voting a little bit in some of these other sections. So it's one of the main rights that you have as a member, and membership may act only at a properly called meeting where a quorum is present, as we have talked about a little bit. And we also have talked about how members in good standing can vote. So 30% of the membership constitutes a quorum, and any motion that is properly noticed shall be approved by a majority vote at a meeting where there is quorum. And any members that are not in good standing do not count towards a quorum, which we've also mentioned. And another note, lastly, you can vote by absentee, as Laura mentioned, but you cannot vote by proxy. So that's basically all the basics of voting. And we'll move on to annual meetings where you would actually be doing that voting. So the board is going to be giving a written notice. They're required to give a written notice to everyone. It's going to be mailed or delivered to people's homes. The written notice needs to include the place, the day, and the time of the meeting, as well as any agenda items. And it's issued no less than 10 days and no more than 60 days before that meeting. Members are going to be generally voting on the budget and electing directors to the board at the annual meeting. And it's held in August each year. The annual report is going to go to the Secretary of State. The financial report, the proposed annual budget of the co-op shall also be made available to each member no later than 10 days before the annual meeting for approval by the membership at the annual meeting. And the board shall recommend for approval by the membership the annual budget with proposed future rents. If members after meeting held or ballot conducted fail to approve a budget that meets all the contractual obligations of the cooperative, the board may approve such a budget without any further vote of the members. And that's a little detail that's important to know, because the cooperative does have contractual obligations, and these are typically things that are required by your mortgage agreement and by the lender. So, for example, cooperatives have to carry insurance. And so if the membership votes on a budget that does not result in enough funds to carry insurance, then the board can overrule that vote. And I think with that, we'll move on to special meetings. And we're getting close to the end here. Special meetings are able to be called by the president of the board of directors as a whole, or by a petition of at least 15% of the membership. And the board shall also set the date, the place, and the time to be held within 30 days after receipt of a request for a special meeting, similar to how they have to notify and provide proper notice for any annual meeting or other special meeting. And business at a special meeting of the membership is limited to the scope of the notice provided. So you can't request a special meeting for something and then at that meeting bring up another topic. It has to be about that which was noticed properly. And I think move on back to Laura.
Thanks, Ryan. So yeah, we are getting close to the end here, but really want to make sure we also cover this last bit here around changing the bylaws and community rules. So as you know, a big part of becoming a cooperative was that you had the opportunity to develop your bylaws and community rules. And the current bylaws and community rules you do have were voted on by the membership and adopted by the membership. But just because, that happened, it doesn't mean that they're set in stone. So it is possible to change your bylaws and community rules. And we split it up that really, if you are interested in actually removing a particular bylaw or community rule, or adding in a new bylaw or community rule, that is going to have sort of the highest threshold to meet in order to do. And the reason, there's a reason for that, and that bylaws really are intended to give a community stability and clarity in decision making. The idea is that we want everyone to know how the community works and have the tools to engage with the community. So if bylaws were changing all the time, that would make it pretty challenging for anyone to engage with in a sort of over-evolving process. And so in this case, and as Wendy mentioned previously, these bylaws are part of a national model. So in particular, it's hardest to actually adopt or repeal a bylaw. These changes require a majority vote by the total membership of the cooperative. And any changes to the bylaws themselves, because this is a legal document, must be approved by a lawyer and by RAC USA, who is part of that national presence and model that St. George Community Cooperative is a part of. If there's interest in amending a bylaw or community rule, and by amendment, it means that the subject matter of that rule or bylaw stays the same, so long as it is a technical change or wording change to an existing rule or bylaw that still pertains to the original subject matter, it is a legitimate amendment. And those amendments have a much lower threshold. Those can be voted on and decided upon by a simple quorum present at a special meeting or another kind of meeting. So amendments can be made by a vote of 30% of the membership, which is the quorum, but completely adding in a new rule or bylaw or removing a rule or bylaw would require a vote from the total membership. If there's one thing that you take away from this presentation, we hope that you've learned a little bit more about how you can engage in your cooperative. Really, cooperatives are only as strong as the engagement from membership. And the starting point to that is to know your bylaws, know your community rules, and know the avenues that you have available to you to participate in the community and shape the community. We've covered a lot of different ways today for how you can participate. Just to recap, members can attend board meetings, members can read board meeting minutes and request those. Members can serve on committees or bring up ideas for new committees to be created. Members can run to be on the board of directors, attend the annual meetings, vote on board members and the annual budget. And these are all just really critical ways that you can make your voice heard in the cooperative. And to wrap it up, we do have a brief list of resources here. There's a lot of information on the cooperative website. St. George Community Co-op does have a website, that's sgc.coop. There you will find your bylaws, your community rules, notices about water issues. For now, we're hoping cooperative policies will get on the website soon. And also on the website is contact information for property management associates. If you have any issues or questions, they're a good place to start. Board members and property management associates work really closely together, and they're a really good place to start if you're having an issue or just have a question. We also here have included information from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, which oversees and regulates Vermont's mobile home parks, and we work with them very closely. Their website contains, you'll find the laws there and lots of other sort of general information from the state about mobile home parks. And last but not least, you have our information there at the bottom, CVOEO Mobile Home Program. We're here to support homeowners all across the state. And if you're having trouble connecting with the board or with property management, or a question about how to approach a certain situation, we're always happy to take your call and do our best to support you. So thanks, and hope you've enjoyed this presentation.
Thanks, everyone.